Hayden Birdsong's debut gave Giants fans a lot to be excited about as the Giants went for a sweep, but it was all spoiled by what looked like a pretty poor managerial decision at the end.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already. And please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show today. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And coming up on today's show, we're going to get into the debut of Hayden Birdsong. And granted, it wasn't, the most perfect outing of all time, but he certainly flashed upside in this outing, and I think gave Giants fans a lot to be excited about. And the Giants got the win, and they were going for a 4-game sweep of the Cubs. And unfortunately, like I said in the open there, with again my wrong microphone, so I apologize for those of you who heard that. But it was spoiled by what looked like a poor managerial decision to go to Luke Jackson in the 10th inning of this tie game that the Giants had come back in. And so we'll get to that, and also the fact that the Giants are getting a little bit healthier. They're going to have some help on the way in the form of Lamont Wade Jr. So a lot to get into today, but I want to start with the positive, which was the fact that the Giants took 3 out of 4. From the Cubs. It was something that I said, I would have taken that for sure going into this series. You're never expecting a sweep, right, of a 4-game series against a rival too, right? When I say a rival, I mean a team that they're competing with in the National League wild card race. And so the fact that the Giants were able to take 3 out of 4 is just undoubtedly a win. It's just that they had a chance to sweep and they didn't do it. And now the Dodgers come into town. So for Hayden Birdsong, I think he was obviously the story in Game 3 of the series as he made his Major League debut. Some of the graphics they were showing up on the screen were just really cool in terms of, the fewest games pitched or innings pitched in the Giants system to reach the majors, fewest games or innings in the minors to then reach the majors. And he was on a list with all the guys that have been just huge success stories for, among Giants pitchers like Tim Lincecum, Matt Cain, Madison Bumgarner, and those kind of guys. And so Birdsong, he ended up going 4 2/3, allowing, let me just make sure I have the right box score pulled up here. 4 2/3, 6 hits allowed, did give up a homer, 3 walks. And so, that's a lot of base runners, 3 runs. The homer was on I think the last pitch he threw, and it was just it could have been an out. Like if he had gotten Seiya Suzuki out there, then it would have been through 5 innings. It would have been 5 innings, 2 runs, 5 hits. And so he was kind of just 1 pitch away from a very different type of outing. And at the end of the day, I think what we saw was the upside of Hayden Birdsong as opposed to focusing on an ERA over a 4 2/3 inning sample. What we saw, and this was funny because I read the scouting grades before he made his debut on FanGraphs, because I personally haven't watched a lot of Hayden Birdsong. I've seen some highlight clips, but not a ton. And the grades that he was given on FanGraphs had him with the fastball as his best pitch, the curveball as his next best pitch, and then the slider. And then way behind that was the changeup. And yet the changeup was the pitch that was perhaps the most impressive and one of the pitches he threw the most often. In fact, I can just tell you exactly how many of which pitch he threw. or at least the percentages of the pitches. So he threw his fastball 54% of the time. He threw his changeup 22% of the time. And the curveball only 10% of the time, the slider 14% of the time. So yeah, the breaking pitches, the curveball and the slider were slightly more often used more often than the changeup, but still 22% changeups. And it was just a pitch that, well, if I'm looking at the pitch values, the changeup had some kind of, I'm going to have to go to Baseball Savant for this actually to dive a little deeper into the particular pitches and how they moved relative to major league average and kind of what the results were on those pitches as well. So against the four seamer, the opponents hit, in this game, he threw 52 of them. That doesn't seem right. How could he didn't throw? I guess he did throw. How many pitches did Hayden Birdsong throw? That's an important question here. Hayden Birdsong threw 97 pitches in this game. So he did. He threw 52 fastballs. Opponents hit 273 with a 545 slugging against it. Against the changeup, they hit 600 with a 600 slugging. So it was just singles. Only 3 balls in play. 3 out of 5, I guess, balls in play on the changeup were hits, and then no hits on the slider or the curveball. So that's worth noting. But I did just want to pass along some notes that Birdsong had to say about the changeup and that Patrick Bailey had to say about the changeup. So Birdsong, after the game, said that Bailey told me at the very beginning of the game, your changeup is good. Let's throw it. And then I said, I'm in. Let's do it. I threw it a lot. It's what was working. We'll keep doing that. And so it's not just about the results. We're talking about only balls in play against the changeup. We're not talking about pitches that were not in play, I guess it's not just balls in play. If you got an out, that also is going to count. Like if you strike someone out with it, but also, throwing it to get ahead in counts, getting swings and misses, throwing it for called strikes, all of that matters too. So I'll dive into that in a minute. And Bailey said, I think it grades out as his best pitch. So this is just completely contrary to the scouting report that I gave you before the game that was up on FanGraphs. And this is Patrick Bailey, who I don't think he's just saying that. He probably has a clue about what the Giants think about that pitch too. And for me, just watching it, it was like 88 and it had good downward and tailing action on it. And Bailey said, I think he's made adjustments to it since spring. It's going to be one of the better pitches in the game. It's going to be one of the better pitches in the game. So, yeah. And then Bob Melvin on the outing said, stuff guys just have the ability to get out of those types of things. I thought he used all of his pitches really well, especially that inning when you've got 2 on and nobody out. You've got a situation where now you've got to bear down a little bit, really no room for error, and he gets out of it with nobody moving up. That was an impressive inning. And then his dad, Stacy Birdsong, said, just proud. We had a great time watching. Very surreal. It's funny to think about all the times you do things in the yard and you work hard and you sit here and you watch it. Lots of emotions. There was a lot of excitement. It wasn't exactly what like we would have all liked, but that's how it works, right? I'm a big believer that if you're not winning, you're learning. Today, he learned a little bit. It's been good. It was awesome. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's, yeah, so they've assigned a run value to the changeup as a negative value. The expected batting average, by the way, on the changeup, 167 with an expected slugging of 179. So we're talking like, what did I say, 3 balls in play. So I wouldn't, it was more about kind of watching it than kind of what the results were on these various pitches. So anyway, yeah, I was just impressed. And the fact that he's 22 years old is even more impressive because, there's a lot of room for growth there. And he was also, by the way, with the fastball, upper 90s. We're talking 97, 98 with the fastball. And when he was able to just throw strikes and pound the zone, he was effective. He got into some trouble. He walked, almost 14% of the batters he faced. He struck out 23%, got a lot of ground balls, 57%. But, a 22-year-old having a pretty good outing in his major league debut is just going to bring a lot of energy and excitement to the fans and to the team. And that's what it did. And it carried them into this game 4 with a chance to sweep the series. And then it looked, Giants fell behind early, then they tied it, and then things went south late. And it was a managerial decision, perhaps, that cost them this game, or at least that played into it. So we'll get into what I mean by that in just a second. And before we get into it, today's episode is brought to you in part by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Giants, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring trainings, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Because just because tax season is over, it doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated tax matters that require tax planning like me, or finally hit that parlay this season, not me just yet, and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in this episode description below. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, which I've personally bought on eBay Motors, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, as promised, we're going to get into a managerial snafu, in my opinion, that I don't want to say it cost them the game, but it certainly didn't help that they it didn't help in their efforts to try to win the game using Luke Jackson in the 10th inning. Obviously a tie game if you're in the top of the 10th, and it was very predictable what happened next. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow I think we're going to be putting out a fresh batch of mailbag questions. I suspect a lot of trade deadline talk. It's usually this time of year when you all start asking me about trades. And so we'll get into that and any other questions you may have tomorrow. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, just a reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So, this game today, first of all, it started out like a game that was just looking like a loss because the Giants fell behind 3-0 to the Cubs pretty early in the game. Well, I guess no, it wasn't early. It was in the 6th inning. No. The Cubs scored 3 in the 3rd. And the Giants answered with 3 2-out runs in the 6th to tie it. And it's not like they had a ton of chances. Giants only had 6 hits. They had 3 walks. I'm looking at the line score. The Cubs struck out 14 times. Giants struck out the Cubs 14 times in this game. The only Giant pitcher who didn't have a strikeout, Luke Jackson. And Luke Jackson, with his ERA that's now 6.23, he was the guy who gave up the runs. I mean, the bullpen was perfect until Luke Jackson. And when I look at the kind of usage patterns on the team, my thought, they had Camilo Doval warming up earlier in the game, so he was clearly available. And it's the 10th inning. If you prevent a run from scoring, you're probably going to win because you get a free runner at second base to start your inning. And so to me, whether it's the 9th or the 10th, like I could just see that being where you just go to Camilo Doval. I do not understand using Luke Jackson in that situation because Luke Jackson has just frankly kind of stunk. I did notice as I was looking at Hayden Birdsong's game box score that Jackson did pitch yesterday, pitched an inning and a third and didn't allow any runs, but he also didn't strike anybody out. And so he just hasn't been, I mean, his strikeout rate this season right now is 17.7%, which is not high. His walk rate is 12.4%, which is high. He has been getting a lot of ground balls, and so perhaps there was something there that they liked. There's just a lot of other guys who I would have liked to see in that situation before Luke Jackson. Like he's just about the last guy because they already used Spencer Bivens. I'm looking at the last 6 days of usage. Like Randy Rodriguez pitched 53 pitches a couple days ago, so I'm going to say he was out. Spencer Bivens had pitched in the game already. Sean Jelly had pitched the previous inning. Eric Miller had pitched 2 days in a row, but he had already pitched in the game. Ryan Walker had pitched in the game. Taylor Rogers should have been available. Tyler Rogers had pitched 2 days in a row, so maybe he was theoretically unavailable. But Tyler Rogers or Camilo Doval, they had each pitched 2 days in a row, but Doval had thrown 8 pitches the previous game, only 15 the game before that. Rogers 15 and 14, and so I don't know. I mean, unless they were just down and out, but Doval was warming up earlier, and so I just don't understand. You can just go for the kill there and use Camilo Doval. Maybe they worried about his inability to hold runners on base and that the Cubs were going to be able to steal a base on him in that situation. But Luke Jackson, I mean, we singled him out. I don't want to be harsh on anyone in particular, but his performance has been so bad that he's just about the last guy. Like before the inning started, the note that I wrote here was Luke Jackson top 10 question mark Doval ? And so it just like seemed like a plan that was destined to fail. And so there were a few times last season where I did this with Gabe Kapler, like when Ross Stripling was put like in the bullpen, was brought into some critical situations. And I was like, what? This is just about the last guy I would want to see. And that's kind of how it felt with Luke Jackson. When you're going for a 4-game sweep, it's 3-3, it's extra innings. And so, Doval has a strikeout rate in his career close to 30%. This season, even with his struggles, it's 27%, 10 percentage points higher than Luke Jackson's essentially. And, the walks, I guess, are kind of similar, but Doval also gets a ton of ground balls historically. I guess Luke Jackson does too, but I don't know. Like let's just combine his Giants career last year and this year. He's got a 4.32 ERA, a 3.76 fielding independent pitching. There's just no doubt that Doval is a better pitcher, and I don't know. Like I'd even rather probably see Taylor Rogers because he's been more of a strikeout guy, and that runner on second. Basically, you really don't want to allow a homer, but you also would like strikeouts. But Doval the last 2 seasons, by the way, 3.39 ERA, 3.15 fielding independent pitching, and that's even with a 4.40 ERA this season. So I don't know. To me, you just use your best guy there, knowing that if you get through that inning with allowing even just one run, then you're in good shape. But Luke Jackson, I mean, the ERA kind of speaks for itself. He's had trouble preventing runs in like any outing that he's pitched in. If I look at the last, we'll go through, I guess, he had a stretch, I guess, of a bunch of scoreless outings dating back to pretty much the beginning of June. So if we go, no, because he gave up a bunch of runs at St. Louis on the 22nd, and then against the Cubs in this very series, in a third of an inning, he allowed 3 earned runs with 2 walks and 3 hits, no strikeouts. Like he literally has 1 strikeout since June 9th in, I don't know how many appearances this is, but it's 8 innings. He's only struck out 1 batter. And so they're putting the ball in play, and that's kind of the last thing you want in that situation. And so I'm kind of reading through the game story and trying to see if Bob Melvin offered an explanation as to why. I know in this article they're talking about the kind of halfway point of the season being yesterday, and that's part of what I'd like to do on the mailbag episode tomorrow is evaluate the Giants as they just passed the halfway point with that Hayden Birdsong win game. But, so Bob Melvin, I don't see a tough or an answer to the question about why they went to Luke Jackson, but he did say that they were limited on options in terms of relievers, and Tyler Rogers, Ryan Walker, and Eric Miller are each among the top 10 in appearances. And Melvin said it's a lot depending on where we are in the game. We're trying to keep guys available for the next day. So that's what I was thinking, is that they're kind of worried about the Dodgers on Friday, but you have a chance to win a game that's right in front of you. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think Jackson wasn't the guy to go to there, and there wasn't really an explanation in this article that came out after the game talking about the decision. So I'll have to probably watch the presser. I have not had time to, but some of you, I'm sure, in the comments are already letting me know what he said. But I'm not the only one. I know my mom was texting me, "Hey, Mom," she listens to the show. She was like, she blames Bob Melvin because even she knows not to put Luke Jackson into that situation. So, and she knows a lot. It's not to say even she knows, but yeah, it just didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel right to my mom. It probably didn't feel right to most of you. Why is Luke Jackson pitching in this game? And sure enough, he gave up a homer and the Giants lost. So anyway, coming up in just a minute, we're going to turn the page, and actually, this game did end. And so now we are going to focus on the Dodgers coming into town. And there's a key return that could potentially spark this team in a major way. So we'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially for travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rivals' cities with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival's city. So I went to LA earlier in the year, and Booking.com saved my butt because I was able to find the perfect place overlooking, up in the hills over, I couldn't see Dodger Stadium, but I saw downtown LA and all its smog and glory. I did enjoy myself. I'm not going to lie, but it's just, I love visiting all these cities. I went to Boston, and I'm planning more trips in the future using Booking.com. So the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. Today's episode of Locked On Giants is also brought to you by LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started. All right, as promised, we have some good news. Not that, winning 3 out of 4 at the end of the day, you'll take it 3-1 in your last 4. You just got to put together little stretches like that. You're not going to win every game, but little stretches, not little, but you just keep consistently winning series essentially, and you're going to be in a good spot. But the trouble is now you've got the Dodgers, and then you're on the road against the Braves and the Guardians, two of the the Braves aren't having their best season, and so hopefully it's just a tough place to play though. To go into Atlanta, it's going to be like 100 degrees. And first you got to play the Dodgers. So thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow. I do want to do like a halfway point of the season evaluation, talk about where they're at and what they need to improve on, what they've done poorly on, what they've done well, standouts, unexpected performances, all kinds of stuff as we have passed the halfway point. There's less than half the season remaining at this point. A reminder that you can check out right after the game Postcast with Eric Engel on Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube. It's right after the game, live reaction, instant reaction. You can join the conversation. So hit that bell notification, and he goes live right after the games. And it's also for 49ers games and Warriors games as well when those seasons get going. So be sure to check out Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube. And also the Locked On Giants postcast from that show gets put on this podcast feed on like Apple, Spotify, and all that. So be sure to check it out. And a reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So the big good news is that Lamont Wade Jr. is set to return against the Dodgers. So manager Bob Melvin said that Wade will be activated from the injured list prior to Friday night's series opener against the Dodgers at Oracle Park. So Wade has been out since May 27th. Here we are, it's June 27th. So exactly a month later, we hear he's going to be activated tomorrow with this left hamstring strain. That kind of went by fast for me. They didn't lose too much ground without Wade, so that's, I guess, a good thing. He's 1 for 7 with 4 walks in 3 games with the River Cats. I think he played the field in the last 2 games. But Melvin said it's a pretty significant bat. Certain guys you miss over the course of the season at times, but whether it was on base, whether it was big hits, it was a top-of-the-order guy that we lean on a lot. It'll be great to get him back and in time for a very important series. And when I say important, like, I don't really realistically think the Giants are chasing down the Dodgers in the National League West. They're currently 12 games back. Dodgers have won 4 in a row as of right now. They're 51-31. They're 20 games over 500. The Giants are 4 games under 500. So you're kind of a little bit unrealistic if you're thinking the Giants are catching the Dodgers. I think this is more a race to be in the wild card round, and that was always the most likely scenario for the Giants, who are 3 games back in the wild card race. Trouble is there's a few teams ahead of them. Some of these other teams have been losing too. So, the Diamondbacks lost. The Pirates, I'm not too worried about there. The Mets have been red hot. The Cardinals, I think, are going to come down to earth a little bit. So there's room for the Giants to catch up. But when I say this series is big against the Dodgers, it's more like big for the Giants to win some games. You know, if they can win this series somehow, some way. For a while, the Giants played the Dodgers really tough for like year after year after year. Jeff Snyder of Locked On Dodgers and we looked back at the head-to-head records of these teams basically since the Dodgers became really good in like 2014 or whatever it was around then. And the Dodgers were like 200 games over 500 against the rest of the league and right about 500 against the Giants for like almost a 10-year span. But in the last few years, it's been totally different where the Dodgers have kind of dominated the Giants. So that is why, to me, this is a very big series, because you just like at the very worst want to get at least one win. But I think if you can win a game in this series at least, then that's critical. I mean, just don't get swept. If you get swept, you're going to be 39-46. Like, that's just not good. And if you can win 2 out of 3, you're 41-44. I think that would be very palatable, you know, winning 2 out of 3. And I believe they're going to have Logan Webb going in game 1 of the series. Against, I don't even know who this guy is. Knack. Knack. Never heard of him before. Landon Knack. And yet, of course, he's out here 25 2/3 innings with a ERA of 2.10. Just typical Dodgers stuff there. Logan Webb, though, going for the Giants. And then Tyler Glasnow in game 2 for the Dodgers against TBD for the Giants. And then TBD for the Giants in game 3 against James Paxton, who has a 3.39 ERA. So it's going to be tough, but it's always tough when you're playing the Dodgers. But getting Lamont Wade Jr. back, and his, you know, when he went on the IL, he was like right on the cusp of qualifying for leaderboards, and he was like leading the league in on-base percentage by like 50 points. So some of it was very unsustainable, but he was just such an offensive weapon. And to get him back and have some other guys who are hitting well, like Elliot Ramos, although he's kind of slumping actually as of late, and Patrick Bailey, and just a mix of guys who are doing all right. You know, the lineup hasn't been the biggest problem. It's been the pitching. And today it was the managerial decision, in my opinion, to go to Luke Jackson in extra innings that cost them the most. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow, kind of a first half season recap and also some mailbag questions as well. Locked On, by the way, has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like the show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Dodgers coming into town, going to be huge. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.